Hi there, welcome to episode 151 of the WaveBack Music Podcast. My name is Kris.
And I'm Matt.
And we're here to listen to the most interesting video game music there is. This is a very special episode because we've been invited to participate in Masters of VGM, a collaborative effort between a number of fantastic VGM-related podcasts to highlight the very best in the business. This week we'll be covering a few of my favorite VGM artists and why I believe they should be revered as some of the best at what they do. Welcome to Masters of VGM, Volume 1. Well, hello, Matt.
Hello, Kris.
How you doing?
I am good. How are you?
I am also good. I am excited to listen to this, to share my picks, and it was fun to try and put this stuff together.
Yeah, everybody knows I'm the guy that doesn't do homework, so this is really hard for me.
Yeah, we were just right before we started recording. We were talking about your picks and trying to narrow a few of them down.
Yeah.
So just to kind of put this into some perspective, Masters of VGM is a month-long event designed to celebrate the best in the world of VGM by way of a whole bunch of podcasters. Matt and I were more than happy to participate, and I think I've come up with a pretty fun group of artists for my episode. Obviously, my list could be a whole lot bigger than 4, but in the interest of sticking with the original concept of Masters of the Masters of VGM series, which was to decide who would be your quote-unquote VGM Mount Rushmore, we decided to keep it to 4 composers per person. I split mine between 2 obvious favorites and 2 other favorites that I think had a tremendous influence on what VGM could be at their respective times in the industry. So each composer gets 2 songs, which was also pretty hard to narrow down for all of them, but I did what my heart told me, and we can get to work. So yeah, two obvious choices from me, and if you know me, the other 2 choices probably aren't that hard to they're on that far out on a limb, but I think I did a good job of justifying them being as part of my my VGM Mount Rushmore.
It's, I wish I had the problem you did. You're like, there's just too much. I mean, there is in reality. I'm just so bad with names, and I'm so bad like remembering things, and so there are points I play video games where I almost don't even notice the background music, and I do a video game music podcast. Like, what the hell's wrong with me? So it's gonna be an interesting, journey here for me.
It's certainly going to be an interesting journey all around. I'm really excited to hear these other podcasts and who else is getting chosen. Like, I know there's going to be people picking Nobuo Uematsu and Yoko Shimomura, and they've nothing but respect for them. Like, they deserve it without a doubt. Just coming down with 4 for myself is like it was a bit of a tough one. I'm actually just sent my picks into Bedroth on our Discord server so that he can update the website and whatnot, and it seems that at least one of mine is on his list as well, which is pretty cool. So
I think that's the part I enjoy the most about these kind of collaborative efforts, is to really see what other people bring to the table. I remember when I was a kid, I hated doing science fairs, right? I just hated doing all that work and yada yada. Nobody really cares how a stalactite is made, trust me. But I like to see all the other presentations that like other students made, and I would intentionally walk around and just be in awe of it, like, wow. So the collaborative effort's really kind of where I'm most excited about. And then, of course, because there's going to be other composers that, I don't know of, or, oh, I didn't know that so-and-so did that. Holy, okay, great. It's the opportunity to expand my horizon is really the secondary exciting part of it. So
yeah, and I'm also I feel the same way, and also to be like, why did they make their lists? Like, what made these, besides I just really like their music, what makes them worthy of this list? So that's it's really, really awesome.
There you go.
All right, well, here we go. I think it's time to get to work, and
yes.
We'll do my first pick. So my first pick is probably the most obvious of all possible picks for me. Well, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. My first pick is Hirokazu Tanaka. a.k.a. Hip Tanaka, a.k.a. Chip Tanaka. Either way, Hirokazu Tanaka is really shouldn't be a surprise to anyone who's ever listened to this show before. I adore this man's work, specifically his early Game Boy stuff. He's done a whole lot with his career after he left Nintendo. He does a lot of really awesome chiptune related stuff, but there are very few other composers, I think, that captured the spirit of what it was to be a Nintendo fan and the spirit of Nintendo gaming at the beginning of the Game Boy's life than Tanaka. Everything from Balloon Fight for NES and Dr. Mario all over the map. Like, this guy's work is just insane. So picking 2 songs from Tanaka's catalog was a little tough, but I think I did okay here, just kind of showing the range. My first pick is one that it was the first song we ever listened to on this podcast. I know I've brought it back from time to time, and it is Pennsylvania from Balloon Kid. And I just think it is the most perfect Game Boy song ever written. Let's go ahead and give it a listen. Here is Pennsylvania by Hirokazu Tanaka from Balloon Kid for Game Boy. Enjoy. That is Pennsylvania from Balloon Kid, one of my favorite Game Boy games. This song just does everything right. It does all of my favorite things that can come out of a Game Boy speaker. But it's also a really neat riff on his previous work. This is a sequel to Balloon Fight for NES, and his Balloon Fight from the Balloon Trip stage, that theme from that song is such a highly regarded work, and this kind of takes the core, the bones of that, and turns it into a much more expansive, kind of a just outward song, very floaty, and which is really what Balloon Kid does to Balloon Fight. It takes that core concept and turns it into an adventure, and it's just magical. The instrument choices, the way they work together on that high-pitched main melody, the way he brings the bass line really high towards the end. I love that sound. He's so good at using that specific high-pitched bass notes to really kind of bring this really warm feeling out of Game Boy music. I couldn't possibly love this song more. I think in our first episode I said this is the perfect example of a song that reminds me of playing video games in the summer with the window open or something. Like, it's just perfection.
I could definitely hear that. It's a really great little tune. I'll always talk about composition, instrument choice, stuff like that. But for this one, I want to dig into the actual depth of it. There's a nice light reverb on it, on that lead line, and it gives it just a nice space. So it makes it feel big, right? You said this was for Game Boy?
Yeah, original black and white Game Boy, yes indeed.
It's crazy how those tracks can sound so massive on such a small scale. And it's a testament to the simple tricks, audio engineers can do to, I don't want to say fool the listener, but to, leave an impression, to give you an idea, to create spatial awareness and stuff. And it's just a prime example of just how impressive that Game Boy, just get the Game Boy's audio system alone, from soup to nuts is. The piece itself is just fantastic. It's such a like a happy, jolly little tune. Like I defy you to sit there and listen to it with a sourpuss. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
it's so joy.
Yeah. I this is my first time maybe really hearing it. Maybe in a while. I don't know if my whole life was going down the tubes and I heard this, I'd be like, you know what? Yeah, maybe it's not that bad. I don't know. This song's kind of doing it for me right now. You know what I mean? It's a really good piece of work. Obviously, well accomplished composer. We can gush about him for days. And I'm sure, honestly, other podcasters will have other bits of music from him, and they'll say just the same stuff, man. So.
Yeah, I feel I would be surprised if I'm the only person who puts Tanaka on the list. But I also would be surprised if somebody else picked this tune from all of his work. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my second Hip Tanaka song is a bit of a different animal, but kind of a similar core value to it. So my second pick is actually from Smash Brothers for Wii U. And this was him doing a remix of one of his earlier songs for Smash Brothers. So this is Chill version 2 from Dr. Mario. And this is a really cool modern take on his original song Chill from Dr. Mario. The NES version specifically is what he's messing with here. And I just think it's a blast. So it's a really nice image of what he does now. Like a more modern take on his classical formula, because it really just takes all these parts of the old versions and slaps them into the new. So
before we go listening to it, can I ask you one quick question?
Absolutely.
How many cold references are you going to stick in there? You didn't even notice.
I didn't even know what I said.
You
cool
and blast. And I'm just sitting here and I'm counting them, and I don't know if the audience noticed, but I definitely noticed.
It was not intentional. But,
proceed.
Wonderful. All right. Well, here is Chill version 2 from Super Smash Brothers for Wii U. Enjoy. That was Chill version 2 from Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. I love the original version of this song, and I just think this one's such a cool remix of it. Did it
So
again.
there you go. So I'm not a huge fan of Dr. Mario just as a game. But I do remember some of the music really sticking out. One or two tracks here or there when I come across them, I'm like, that's inherently Dr. Mario. That has to be on the Dr. Mario soundtrack. And I'm usually right.
Yeah, there's only like 4 songs in the game, really. There's not a lot.
Right, which is probably why some of it actually has really stuck with me over the years. Because it's just over and over and over. But that, I mean, look, I'm a big fan of remixes. I love remixes. I love mashups. I love stuff. I love when artists take art that's already established and then take it to another level, take it to another place. They see something different. I love it. And then for a composer such as himself to take one of his original pieces and then, you know, do a remix to it, bring it into modern times, so to speak, with the Super Smash Bros. Series, like, that's just great. You know, to be afforded that opportunity first and foremost, right? And then secondly, on such a platform, and, you know, in the day and age that we're in now, where it's like, my man, the world is your oyster. You can do whatever it is you want. You know, whatever you may have originally heard, but we're confined to the parameters of what you were working with. We don't have that anymore. Go nuts. You know what I mean? Like, and that's just great.
Yeah, I agree. And that is kind of what this seems like. It's a very go nuts approach to this song, which is already kind of nuts to begin with. Like, the original version's pretty wacky, but oh man. I don't know what else to say. I just love it.
That's all you need, man. Love is all you need.
Huh. Well, I have nothing but love for Hip Tanaka.
Absolutely.
A phenomenal career full of fantastic music. And that means it is time for us to move on to my next pick for our Masters of VGM list. And my next pick is the fabulous Soyoka.
All right.
This woman doesn't have a massive career like Tanaka. She didn't do a ton of music, but the stuff that she did was, I think, just extremely important. Besides her super catchy tunes in like Ice Hockey for NES, Oka helped define what the sound of the Super Nintendo was with her early soundtracks with games like SimCity and Pilotwings. She also composed possibly one of the most heard tunes in all of video games, the Super Mario Kart theme, which has been reprised in some form in just about every Mario Kart game since, including the absurdly popular Mario Kart 8. So, chances are, even if you don't know who she is, you've probably heard her music since she composed the original Super Mario Kart, and that theme song just keeps coming back. But her early SimCity, Pilotwings, that stuff on the Super Nintendo was so instrumental in what that system was to me. Between her and Koji Kondo's Super Mario World, like, they just kind of set this tone for what the Super Nintendo was innately capable of, and just kind of the feeling of, I don't know how else to explain it, just the feeling. And it was pretty all over the map of what it was capable of, but it just felt so much more modern than anything the NES could do at the time. So my first pick, as far as like a song that I think does a great job of showing off what the Super Nintendo could do that the NES couldn't do, comes to us by way of SimCity for Super NES, which is another thing we've covered on this podcast a while back. This is the Capital theme by Soyoka, and it's a marvelous piece of music, so enjoy. was Capital Theme from SimCity, a just strikingly beautiful piece of music, as most of the songs in SimCity for Super NES were. And I don't know what you make of that one.
Oh, I can make a hat or a sailboat. Look, first of all, SimCity has such a special place in my heart. I'm such a huge fan of the franchise, right? When the first SimCity came out and was on PC, I was so upset because I didn't have a PC, for who knows how long, right? But once they put it on Super Nintendo, I was happier than a pig in slop. And one of the real reasons I think why I have such an affinity for the Super Nintendo SimCity is because of the music and because of that soundtrack. That soundtrack is so part and parcel for me to the game.
Yeah, it was really integral because there's a lot of watching in that game. It's a more passive
watching and wait. Yeah, absolutely.
Your typical action game,
right? So, don't get me wrong. There were times that I just turned the music off. You can mute it or what have you, and then I put on whatever band I was into or whatever. But truthfully, I keep coming back to that soundtrack. It's just it's and I mean this honestly with the most praise, but it's some of the best, gorgeous, most well done elevator music you could ever hear. You know what I mean? It's just so tranquil. It's interesting.
Tranquil. It is great word.
It isn't just this music that is there. It's non-intrusive, right? It's interesting when you really listen to it. It's layered. There's at the risk of being pompous, there's a story to be heard if you're really listening to it. You know what I mean? There's a lot of I adore this soundtrack so much, and this track is Creme De La Creme of it.
I had a hard time picking between this one and the menu music when you're picking you're choosing which map you're going to build on to begin with. Mm-hmm. This one I thought was a little bit more dynamic because it has that whole kind of where everything breaks down and it just turns to the really, really pretty part. But yeah, this is really what I'm talking about as far as what she did, setting this all right, everybody else who wants to make a Super Nintendo game, this is what you're working with. This is what you can do. Because this was such an early Super Nintendo game, at least in North America, and it's just such an important piece of that console's legacy. And all the stuff that she did with this and Pilot Wings in particular, was just
Pilot-Wings, another one,
just astronomically important to what the Super Nintendo sounded like going forward. I only have to imagine that people looked at programmers played this game and Pilot Wings and said, okay.
Right. Okay. Right. I feel like, I don't know, maybe you are, maybe you aren't. I feel like you're dancing around the term made the Super Nintendo sing.
Yeah, no, that wasn't trying to dance around it, but that's it. She made the Super Nintendo sing. Absolutely.
It's that thing where it's just all right, guys, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay. Just this is what we're gonna do, and everyone's oh, just going out of their skull.
Yeah.
At least maybe us. I don't know. Maybe.
And like you said, tranquil as well, because that's another thing that video game music is. Definitely at the time, and games being so action-oriented, and being able to really pull it back and make something so interesting for a more passive, almost PC gaming style experience on the Super Nintendo, I just don't think its importance can be overstated. It's masterful.
Yeah.
On the opposite side of the spectrum, we have what I think is another one of her just most important pieces of work. And that is her what she did with Super Mario All-Stars. These games were legendary when All-Stars happened, but in retrospect, she was given the opportunity to do the music for the 3 NES Mario games, which are just some of the most influential video games of all time, and make them 16-bit. And while I argue that some of what she did in Mario 3 wasn't my favorite. What she did in Mario 2 and specifically Mario 1, I think is incredible. She took Koji Kondo's original just absolute masterpiece and kind of made it her own. There's a little bit of a different cadence to it, but really kind of kept that feeling that Kondo created for both the original Super Mario Brothers and in Super Mario World. Like, took that original piece and made it work in line with the kind of instrumentation that existed for Mario World and on the Super Nintendo. The amount of pressure that I can't imagine the amount of pressure that would go into something like this. Like, even at this point, Super Mario Brothers was the game that reinvented video games, for crying out loud. It was, and that piece of music was already iconic at this point. And to be in charge of making the official 16-bit rendition of it, it must have been a Herculean task, or at least had a lot of pressure on it. And when you look at, I don't know who did the music for the BSX Satellaview version of The Legend of Zelda, but you listen to the 16-bit version of the Zelda theme for that BSX Zelda, it's nowhere near as comprehensive or as good as this. It sounds like cheap and hollow, whereas this sounds outstanding. And we're talking about the song I chose was the 1-1 Overworld theme from Super Mario Brothers that Soyoka absolutely knocked out of the park. It's one of the best video game tunes ever written, and I think her rendition of it for Super Nintendo is masterful. So let's listen to Overworld from Super Mario All-Stars. Enjoy. That is the Super Mario Bros. Overworld theme from Super Mario All-Stars, and there are so many wonderful little touches that she adds to that song and that weren't in the original that don't step outside of the purview of the spirit of the original. Like,
absolutely.
changing it from to and that was something that got reprised in lots of later things. Even Kondo himself performed it live like that. I've seen video of that, which is really cool. The little what's the word I'm looking for? It's almost like that very Super Mario World synthy part that kind of like trails like da, da, like kind of harmonizes in the background a little bit. It is largely based on if you do the special world music in Super Mario World, if you leave it on that map screen, it eventually turns into the Super Mario Brothers theme. And so a lot of the instrument choices actually stem from that. But this really just takes it a step further. And thinking about the percussion in particular is another one. Like in the original 8-bit version, it's just a like going on in the background, and she took that and made it the hi-hat and then added bass drum and a snare drum to it in not the most expected places, really just keeping to the overall feel of the song in a way that I never could. I think it's masterful.
It's it's a huge undertaking to take on what's got to be one of the most iconic pieces of music, let alone in video game history. We're talking, pop culture history, right?
Yeah.
But to do it with such grace and such elegance, like you said, to not step outside of the purview of the pantheon that is Mario music, to stay right within those, the coloring lines, so to speak, but to use such interesting and such vibrant crayons to do so, right? The steel drum, like, how many times later on in the Mario series, period, has the steel drum appeared and it's just fit right in, right? With whatever level, whatever style, whatever the theme was, right? And even the subtle, like, to your point, even the subtle, the oh so subtle changes to the musical composition, right? I don't want to say that she made it better or worse or whatever. I think, to your point again, that Kondo would play it later in concert, quote unquote, her way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a testament. I love seeing musicians who are fans of other musicians, right? And they take their work and they put their spin on it, and then when the initial musician hears it, they're blown away. Oh wow! I never thought of it that way, or like, I love what you did there. That's great, and then they kind of take it on, right? Just seeing musicians be musicians and fanboy or fangirl for other musicians is fantastic. And again, Mario's such a iconic, pop culture, video game icon. It's a big deal, and this track is just gorgeous. I remember playing All Stars for the first time and hearing this for the first time and thinking, "Ooh, okay." All these years later, I obviously, like, my attention's very different. Having all the live experience I have being in bands and stuff, I listen to it now and I'm just like, wow, okay. You go from just being like excited to like excited exploratory. I could listen to that for an hour and probably pick it apart and still come away, with dark and gray areas that I didn't explore yet. It's fantastic. It's just a fantastic redux, if you will.
Yeah, really going in there, and it's not just that song, plopped into the Super Nintendo, like I was saying with the BSX Zelda one. It's just, they just took the NES song and dropped it in there. Whereas the song was reinvented as if it was being written for this platform instead of redoing an NES song. I think she did a fantastic job, and it's why I think she deserves to be on the considered a master of VGM.
I see what you did there.
Okay, next up we have another one of my most obvious picks, and that would be David Wise.
Hey!
There he is. I adore this man's work. Obviously, if you've ever listened to this show before, you know how much I love David Wise's work. Let's see, what did I write down in my script? My third pick is David Wise, another one who shouldn't be a surprise to anyone who's ever listened to the show before. Wise is known mostly for his Donkey Kong work, more than anything, but his career spans much farther than that. Besides his exceptional original works, Wise did some really amazing stuff converting arcade compositions to the NES. For example, our first track from Wise comes from the NES port of Super Off-Road, which Rare developed for TradeWest. Wise took on the task of adapting Sam Powell's original music from the arcade game to the NES and handled it in a way that most other arcade ports on the platform could only dream of. Even Konami's own arcade to NES ports like Turtles 2, the arcade game, I don't think can stand up to what Wise did in games like this or Marble Madness. It's
Madness,
right? It's this incredible skill combined with his original compositions as well that I feel genuinely earns him the title of Master of VGM. So this track is called Huevos Grande.
I was waiting all episode for you to say that.
This comes from the NES port of Super Off-Road. Now, there are other ports of Super Off-Road where other people just did their own original songs for those ports, including Tim Fallon did, I think, was the Genesis one or the Super Nintendo one. Either way, this was the NES port converted the original game's music, and this song is super cool. This whole soundtrack is great, and it sounds so good coming out of an NES. And I personally think a lot of these songs sound even better than their original iterations, which I also feel the same way about Marble Madness, which is another game that David Wise converted somebody's original arcade work to NES for. But either way, this is Huevos Grande from Super Off-Road for NES by David Wise. Enjoy. That song is really cool in the arcade game, and there's, as you can tell, there's a lot going on in it. This would be a pretty easy song to mess up, unless you were literally just dragging and dropping, but I think the way that David Wise put this together makes it really work for this system. It's just extremely well. It sounds so good. It sounds so complete, almost like it was an original composition for this. So yeah, what'd you think?
I'm not really familiar with the arcade version, so I'm really just going to talk about what's there. Look, David Wise, like, if you listen to 30 seconds of the show, ever, you know what I mean? You know how Kris feels about him. I'm a big fan too. The more I'm on the show, the more I'm exposed to, I become a bigger David Wise fan, so it's kind of hard for me not to be. But it's a great piece of music. Super Off-Road, right? I mean, this song makes me want to race, you know, a 4x4 out there, you know, jumping big dirt gaps and all kinds of stuff. It's a great, like, adventure tune, right? And you know, for what it is, right, to port it down from, an arcade cabinet, right, that's no small feat, right? You just mentioned that sometimes it can go sideways, sometimes people didn't even attempt and they just did their own thing, right? To port this down and still make it, give it the feel of a big arcade game it's tremendous, right? You can totally tell that it's definitely a console, right? But there's still something inherently big about it. And there's no audio tricks in there, like, you know, I talked about it before, where, you know, you'd hear some reverb or maybe some delay to give it some space and distance, but there's none of that there. This just feels big. It feels bigger than it actually is in a way that I can't quite quantify. I might have to get back to you on it, but all in all, just a fantastic piece of music.
Yeah, you know, this port of this game in general was outstanding. But this the music really nails it. Really nails it. Just love it.
I will not fight you on it.
Well, so adapting other people's work to lesser hardware is certainly a thing worthy of VGM mastery, but also making your own stuff, which we haven't done Donkey Kong Country 2 on this show yet.
I don't know how at this point, but
I mean, we did the original Donkey Kong Country, so not that long ago. So 2 is probably coming up in the not too distant future. I know I've pulled a lot of tracks from. I really almost went with his Boulder's Realm from Snake Pass, which is just such a wonderful encapsulation of how great he is with modern work. But I decided to jump back into some Donkey Kong Country 2 because we haven't played it on the show yet. And I wanted to go with one of my favorite songs that I think is a little underrated in terms of Donkey Kong Country 2's soundtrack. You think of that game, and what's the one that everyone goes to is Stickerbush Symphony, which is just one of the most amazing songs ever written. But I decided to go with Hothead Bop, which is just an outstanding piece of music that incorporates lava sound effects into the background. It's really chill, and I love it. It's such a good tune. So here's Hothead Bop by David Wise from Donkey Kong Country 2. Enjoy. Hothead Bop from Donkey Kong Country 2, and I tell you, I cannot wait to do this episode.
It's such an interesting track. I'll start by saying you have to love a song that uses bubbling lava, right?
Yeah.
Like, how could you not? But it's such an interesting track in a way that I could see a level in my head, like if I had to conjure something up. But almost to me, I mean, I'd have to hear it with everything else, but I almost feel like it doesn't belong in that game. But, I mean, who the hell am I, right? Otherwise, I mean, fantastic. Like, just this interesting groove. Real interesting choices in synthesizers, right? Like almost that crystalline sound that I talk about all the time with wintry music, but a little toned down.
Very high piano.
Right.
It's very atmospheric, and
yes,
and yet here it almost, when you think of Donkey Kong music, this isn't really necessarily what would come to mind immediately. But when you hear the rest of the soundtrack in context, you're like, this whole game's soundtrack is pretty much like this, which is amazing. Knowing this soundtrack as thoroughly as I do, this definitely is a song among many that is like this. But it's always been one of my favorites. This and Mining Melancholy, I think, are some of my favorites on the soundtrack because they have this very atmospheric feel to them, like incorporating the lava bubbles into the song itself. The more sea shanty flavored stuff even kind of matches this in style because of its very just kind of chill nature, whereas the action of the game is carrying the action of the game, but it's the music is not detracting from it, but at the same time it isn't adding a ton of intensity until it wants to. Which is the game does extraordinarily well, and the whole soundtrack does, because David Wise is a freaking master.
Yeah.
But even just taken on its own, it's like just listening to what came out of what Soyoka did with the Super Mario Brothers theme, right? This is the same platform, and this is before CD quality music, right? This is like just using samples. This is using a Super Nintendo, and it's so different. And as far as just tone and feel, how diverse the music on the Super Nintendo can be. Those songs couldn't be more different coming out of the same darn game system, and even coming from Donkey Kong and Mario, like two relatively similar franchises as far as like the platforming aspect of it goes. I mean, they even started in the same place, but goodness, just what he was able to squeeze out of the Super Nintendo as far as just sounding like really interesting music. And it's beautiful. It's just kind of sinister at the same time because you got that hot from the lava bubbles and stuff going out from underneath it, but also the beauty of just looking at the majesty of the backgrounds. You got all this flowing lava, which is beautiful. Like it's these glowing oranges. It's wonderful. It's such a wonderful tune that matches what's happening in the game flawlessly, and I just love it to death.
Yeah, like I said, not gonna argue with you.
All right, and that brings me to our last pick. Well, my last pick, not our last pick, which is probably the most out there of them, but I stand by it. My final pick is Naoki Kodaka. Kodaka's career, like Soyoka's, isn't as extensive as your Yoko Shimomura's or even your Koji Kondo's, but I would argue that what Kodaka and his teams managed to squeeze out of the NES is nothing short of legendary, as you are soon going to hear. Kodaka worked with Sunsoft, and I often float a little bit more towards Sunsoft work than other people do. I just think that the Sunsoft's output on the NES was just next level. It looks and sounds largely, not always, but largely so much better than what else was happening at the time. One of my absolute top 10 favorite games of all time is Blaster Master. I've frequently not shut up about Blaster Master on this show before. But I do think that the soundtrack in Blaster Master, given its vintage, is really just something out of this world. So Blaster Master for NES released... I should have looked this up beforehand. This was a 1988 joint. So we aren't even in the 90s yet, okay? Like we're 1988. This is not super early, but not like we're in the middle of the NES's cycle here. And we're coming up with some really amazing compositions, but I want to talk about just the sound of this song. This whole game's soundtrack in particular, but the way it sounds seems like it's on a whole other platform. And it's not. It's just running on an NES, but it sounds incredible. The one I picked was Area 3 because it's such an 80s tune, but it also is really, really emblematic of how complex the music can be with its key changes and stuff, and just how wonderfully full and impressive it sounds. And this is before what the techniques that came into play with what we'll listen to in there, my second pick from Kodaka. But this is Area 3 from Blaster Master by Naoki Kodaka, and it's just some of the best darn music to ever come out of an NES. Enjoy. Go. That's Area 3 from Blaster Master. You just gotta wonder, as I do. I just listened to this and I remember playing it for the first time and thinking this game looked and sounded unlike anything I had ever seen. There isn't more detail. It just seems like there is. It's just a complete mastery of what the system was capable of to make music sound like this. I just truly marvelous.
You know, you're absolutely right. Like, I'm listening to it and I'm thinking there's a lot going on here. But when I really think about it, what did I just listen to? There wasn't a lot going on there, right? It's just a couple of simple instruments really just banging on all cylinders.
Yeah, they're working together. They're more than the sum of their parts. And the same thing goes with this game's visuals. I look at some of the monster designs, like, they seem like they have all these moving parts, these really intricate designs, and then you really look at them and like, no, they really don't. But they seem like they do because they are more than the sum of their parts, and that sums up the entire Blaster Master experience for me. And God, this music.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great piece of music. I'm a big fan of this. To me, it's a big touchstone, sorta, to the Nintendo era of music. I feel like this is very Nintendo, but like again, to steal my own term, like Nintendo banging on all cylinders. Yeah. You know what I mean? This is some really standout stuff. in a sea of video game music, this really stands out to me.
Completely agree. It's such a standout piece, and on a soundtrack that is almost nothing but standout pieces. Really, I love this soundtrack to death. But so the opposite side of the spectrum, later in the NES's life, Kodaka and his team, like Kodaka would do the compositions, and then he would work with these teams of programmers to do really cool things, and they kind of pioneered this extra fuzzy bass sound where they, I believe, and I could be getting this wrong because I am but one man. I may be full of crap, but I believe the way this works is that they used the NES's sample channel to sample an actual bass sound to make this really unique kind of deep fuzzy bass noise. And it's attached to a lot of later Sunsoft games on the platform. The song I chose to highlight it and just the overall mastery of this craft comes from Journey to Silius. This is Stage Music 2 by Naoki Kodaka, and it's a super cool song. So here you go. Talk again about music sounding more full than you would think the NES was capable of creating. I just can't say enough good things about this song. It's so like that fuzzy, crunchy bass noise that they use. It's Kodaka himself didn't do it in other games like Mr. Gimmick, for example, but it happened in a lot of these later Sunsoft games, and I find it somewhat abrasive in places. Like sometimes I just don't think it works, but boy, when it works, it really comes together nicely.
All right, I'm gonna put out a disclaimer right now. I'm about to curse.
Okay, all right.
In 3, 2, what the? What was that? Holy cow! Like, all right. All right, hang on a second. I have to wrap my head around what I just heard because... All right.
I take it you're unfamiliar with Journey to Silius?
Call me crazy, but I might have missed that one. I think I might have a new contender for top 3 best video game songs of all time. I cannot believe what you just played for me. That song has blown me away. I am going to listen to this song all day today, for the rest of the day. I'm not even joking you. That was among some of the best music I have heard in a while, right? And some of my favorite bands have put out new albums. You know what I mean? This song that just played has blown not only my socks off, it has blown my wig off, okay? First of all, it like a hammer. I'm telling you, it hits all of my leanings in music, right? I love industrial music. I just saw Frontline Assembly like 2 weeks ago. They were amazing, right? I love electronic music. I'm sitting here and listening to this, and I have this like dream of grandeur that I'm gonna get back up on stage one day. And I'm like, this is the song that I'm gonna play when the lights go out and we're gonna take stage. I'm not even joking you. I was like, this song is amazing. And then the second part came in with that lead, and I was like, stop! Oh, yeah. You have no business being this good. Sit down. You're disrupting the class. I'm sorry. Holy cow. What was the name of this game again? It's
called Journey to Silius. And
yes, okay.
I believe it's on Nintendo Switch Online, as a matter of fact. Like, if you have NSO, this is on your system. Give it a whirl. It's a hard game, but the soundtrack's nuts, man. The soundtrack's good.
If this song is indicative of the rest of the soundtrack, I'm sold. I'm looking really quickly because I know I used to own and have played several Sunsoft games, and I'm scanning very quickly, and obviously Blaster Master. I had the Batman game. Roadrunner's Death Valley Rally. Oh man, there's a few games here I'm seeing. Spy Hunter, Fester's Quest, yeah. Super Fantasy Zone, definitely, yeah, definitely. Oh, Daffy Duck the Marvin missions. Oh,
that's a Super Nintendo one, I think.
I think you're right. But yeah. Now I'm getting further and further along. But still, those Nintendo games, you're absolutely right. Because I'm sitting here going, I know that sound. I know I've played Alien Syndrome. Oh my goodness. Wow. Yeah, Spy Hunter, right. Yeah, you're right though. The Sunsoft I don't know, orchestra, I don't know which one to call it. They have a very specific sound. But this song, wow. Just wow! I am blown away.
Glad you liked it.
Yes.
So yeah, according to Wikipedia, again, not the greatest source in the world, but according to Wikipedia, most NES composers would use the digital channel for sampled drums and the other channels for melodic content. But for Journey to Silius, Kodaka, with the programming assistance of Nobuyuki Hara, Shinichi Seiya, and Naoshia Marota, again, blanket apologies, used the digital channel for a sampled bass line and the triangle channel for a kick drum. It's such a cool piece, and like I said, that specific bass sound comes out of a lot of, like, if you've ever played Euphoria, or as the Japanese game is called Hebereki, or Mr. Gimmick, another great NES soundtrack. Again, Sunsoft. That kind of fuzzy bass, even Batman Return of the Joker is probably what it's most famously from and used in, that kind of really thick bass sound. I believe it originally stems from Journey to Silius, which itself has a really fun history. It was originally built as an adaptation of Terminator, but then they lost the license to make a Terminator game, and so they just kind of changed things up.
So, just enough that you
just
wouldn't
enough
notice.
To make it like the Torminator or something. Super cool game, and a wonderful soundtrack, and I think is an excellent display of why Naoki Kodaka deserves to be a master of VGM.
Man, oh man, I'm sitting here right now staring at the OST when we end this episode. I am going to listen to it while I do household chores. I might break stuff. I don't know. I'll report back next episode.
It's good stuff, and Ollie's done a couple of Journey to Silius covers as well.
Of course he has. Of course he has. Like, who are we kidding?
Something more for you to look forward to. And that's it. That wraps it up for me, and that wraps it up for our show. Join us again next time when Matt will bring us his 4 Masters of VGM. I am very much looking forward to it.
I can't wait to see what he comes up with.
Yeah.
Wait. Yeah, I can't wait to see what he comes up with.
Same here. All right, we here at the WaveBack podcast are incredibly grateful to everyone who listens, and we love communicating with you when we can, and we have a couple of ways you can do that. There's the Geekade Discord channel, in which we have a WaveBack chat where we frequently discuss all manner of stuff relating to video game music and whatever our next episodes are going to be. We also have a WaveBack forum page over on Facebook that I pay almost no attention to, but if you really want to dive in, you can find it by searching for WaveBack on Facebook. Of course, you can still always send us an email at mail@bk.com, and while you're at it, check out all our social media channels, which you should totally follow, like, and subscribe to if you haven't already, and be sure to check out all the other great content we have on our site over at geekade.com. We're going to leave you with a similar song to what we left you with last time. In the previous episode, we listened to Hip Tanaka's beautiful Balloon Kid ending theme, and this time we're going to leave you with one of my absolute favorite ending themes of all time for any platform ever, and that is Rocket Ship Ride from Super Mario Land. Another example of Tanaka just doing the Game Boy justice, and really just a great piece to leave people with. So that's what I got. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks all of our fellow podcasters that are involved in Masters of VGM for bringing up this wonderful situation here. I'm really happy to have been a part of it, and looking forward to hearing what everybody else has. And that's it. Thanks for listening, everybody.